Hey, everybody, welcome to a new episode of the My Impossible podcast. Today, I got to welcome my friend and Kilimanjaro teammate, Carlos Segnini. Carlos is an adventurer at heart. He's originally from Venezuela and has been a global citizen for the last 18 years, where he's lived in 5 different countries. Professionally, Carlos is a petroleum engineer, but as he says, his heart belongs to his 2 daughters, and they inspire everything that he does. In this conversation, Carlos takes us into his impossible, from his beginnings in Venezuela to his realization that his lifestyle was not sustainable and he had to make a change. And he invites us into some of his experiences in the Spartan community and the races, both the OCRs as well as the endurance races, and clues us into a secret around our mindset and what truly is possible. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Carlos. Carlos, welcome to the show. Really glad that we made this work.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, let's see what we can do in this little time together, and
Yeah.
get to know everyone or each other too.
So, with that, what is or was your impossible?
Well, I guess you could find different moments in my life where it was hard to find out a way to go. I'm originally from a small town in South America, in Venezuela. My parents were not, um, didn't have much means, right? They worked hard every day to provide what we needed at home. And I was always that little chubby kid where everyone will bully at school. And growing up, I'm not going to say it was hard, but it's hard compared to, all the things that are in life these days. Um, so even starting from that point, thinking that this young boy um coming out of that place, I was able to, go get out and, you know, get a college degree and be able to move abroad and travel different places and accomplish things. That might already be a story. But I also remember as I grew up, I was probably 10, 12. My one of my uncles died of a heart attack, and it was rough, right? At that age, you don't really comprehend what it is for someone you love to die, right? Um, and he died because my whole family suffers from all sorts of diseases. I've got cancer in both sides, mom and dad. I've got blood pressure. I've got heart disease in both sides, diabetes, everything, you name it. All those congenital diseases, they run in my family. And that made a big impact in me. And as I continued to grow older, all of my male uncles had heart problems. My dad has high blood pressure. He had cancer. So there was a point in my life when I was overweight. I was about 20 something, 28, 29. I was overweight. I was already, tired, sluggish, cholesterol high rocket. And, you know, I had to change that. And that was the impossible, right? All of my family, all of the genetics against me. And I had to take control and do something.
Mm. Eh, I relate to your story of you as a kid to the degree, I was um I was a little overweight, a little chubby, and I can remember what at laying in bed at night, what I would think about. Like, I'm never gonna amount to anything. Um, no one's ever gonna love me. I'm never gonna have a girlfriend. All the stories. I'm wondering, and all of it felt, again, for me, it felt impossible. Like, this is like, there's nothing much to look forward to.
Right.
I'm wondering, just take us back, whether it be at 10, 11, when your uncle passed away, or even earlier, but what were some of the stories, the impossibles that you were telling yourself even then?
Right. I mean, some of those things that you describe are the same. Like I would go like every kid, active kid at that time. You know, we didn't have cable TV. It was Venezuela. We had 3 channels, so there was no cartoons to choose, and so my days were spent in the street, and even going out to the street to play. I was always the kid that was picked last, and all the older kids would make fun of me, and uh, I couldn't even fight. I never had a girlfriend, not even up to when I was in college. So yeah, I mean, all those things played back in my mind. Um, I was, I'm not gonna lie. I've always been smart, so I knew that I could change these things, but I never let them drag me down, and I kept pushing forward. But yeah, there were days that were harder than others.
Yeah. What were your dreams as a kid or as you grew up? What were you talked about your intelligence, but what did you dream about? Whether it be dream about being or doing, what were those things that motivated you, those dreams?
Right. Well, I used to play baseball when I was a teenager, so I kind of wanted to play better. Never was that good, but I guess it was okay. But also, I remember sometime in high school there was a visit from a Venezuelan oil company. They came and they showed what they did, and I thought that was awesome. And I said I was gonna be a petroleum engineer, and that's what I became. 10 years later. So that was, kind of one of the things, and it was hard because it was not in the, there was no university, no college there where I grew up. So we had to move to a city where I could study, and even when I moved there, I had to present a test, a admission test for that university to be admitted to, which I did, and I got admitted. So yeah, that's probably a couple of the things that I can remember. I knew I could do more than just being there. I think my parents did a great job in that when I was growing up. They always showed us that we could do more, and they always worked really hard to be able to, you know, open doors for us to pursue.
Mm. And then you described that time in your 20s when you had this you were in a state of probably not the greatest fitness, and you were faced with your mortality because of all of these health things, congenital health things that you were up against. Take us into not so much the moment where you said something has to change, but maybe those moments beforehand of what what your life was like, how you were feeling in your body, maybe the things you were thinking about. What was happening around that time?
There's a few things that I remember. I mean, there's one thing is I was always tired. I was always falling asleep everywhere. I remember falling asleep sitting in. I was reading for an audience something, and in a small pause, I was sitting there and I fell asleep. And I was in front of everyone, and I was sitting with my book in my hand, and I fell because my body was just crashing. I guess. Um, every time I would go to the doctor, obviously I would get the usual, right? You have to lose weight. You have a very high cholesterol. You're at risk. Um, and then the general things you get tired with. very small things. You get tired going up the stairs. You get tired doing nothing. When I started, I had I had the opportunity to and I maybe we'll talk about that a bit. I joined like a small group from my company that we were given the opportunity to improve our health, and like we were given a dietitian, and then I joined the gym that was next door to the office. And I remember trying to run, and I could not run more than 2 minutes straight, right? And that was it was hard. It was hard to start. My nutrition was terrible. My body was not responding, uh, and that's when I said I need to change.
Mm. So take us into that moment a little deeper. Like what went into that decision? I mean, obviously you weren't feeling great, and you were seeing what it meant to be in this lifestyle, this unhealthy lifestyle. Like, take us into that moment where you said something has to change, and I'm committing, not just saying I have to change, but then committing to the change.
Um, I think I was 28 or 29, and I knew that the older I got, it would be harder to make changes. Um, and I guess I was also fed up, right? I was tired of being that person. I was tired of being the one that got tired of everything, that was lazy. Well, not lazy as itself, but that could not do anything physically. I had tried a few times to start and going to the gym and lose weight, and could never, accomplish it. So it was, it was that was the moment when I said, this I need to change this. One thing that also influenced me at the time was that, like I mentioned, all of my male uncles had different, moments of hard problems. Uh, there was only one that was not, and he had always been into, physical bodybuilding and lifting and things, and he always looked great. He's an actor, so he had to, but he never had those issues, right? So I could see the difference. I could had, I had this person in my family who was able to face all these things and change them. So I have to do the same, and that's how it started.
Mm. I'm always curious about habit change because, like you said, you had a few moments of start and stop, um, where you made an effort, but then you fell back. And I'm always curious of what makes the difference that one time
Yeah.
when it's successful. Do you have a sense of what was different this time that you're describing at 29 than all the other previous times?
Yeah, I absolutely have a sense. It was two things. One was that, like I said, we were given that opportunity from my company, selected a few of us that had, we had a dietitian, so I had help. I had the proper help. I was not doing it by myself. I was learning things that I didn't know about nutrition. I started doing things like measuring carbs and portions and stuff that I never did in the past. So I was doing something, or with organization, and there was a bit of a challenge. Too. Was a bit of a competition because they were. Um, it was not. There was no prize for winning. Who was the one that was improving the best of their health? But there were like set points where they would check us, and it would be. There was a little bit of feedback. You're doing great. It will be shown to other employees as an example, and so that was the other part. There was a reward on it, even if it was a little bit. Uh, um, I mean, there was no money on it. There was no medal. There was no prize, but there was a reward of people telling me that it was doing good, and there was a group of people doing the same, fighting the same. So that that helped a lot. And when I would discover what I could do, like I said, I could only run maybe a couple minutes, and then I was running 5 minutes, and then I was running 10 minutes. And then I remember the office was next to a very nice little park. It was, you could go around it. You would see people running every day there. So then I could do that too. I could do the things that I could see others doing, running around that park and, putting all these things together, that sense of accomplishment, getting those goals done, those milestones, people, yeah, having a little bit of recognition, having that group of people helping, that absolutely make the difference.
And you and I have only known each other for 6 months. We've only met in person one time at a Spartan race, but the person that's in front of me is you blow me away, Carlos, with what you take on. We just got done talking a little bit about the Spartan death race. For those that aren't familiar with it, you can Google that online. It's just tremendous. What would that guy back, whether it be the 10-year-old Carlos or the 29-year-old Carlos, what would he be saying, or what would he think about who you are today and the type of things you're doing?
Oh yeah, no way. Yeah, I would not have thought that I would do these things, right? Even 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you get progressively better, right? If you keep trying, and I've put myself big different challenges that I know they're hard, they're scary, like going up Kilimanjaro with you, that I know I could fail, and pushing those limits to see what's really possible. That it seems like it's not possible, but at the end of the day, with a lot of work and help, you can make them. So yeah, if you ask me, at that 10-year-old boy or even 30-year-old Carlos, even 10 years ago, I would probably tell you it's just not possible. I cannot do those things.
What is it that fuels you now? Here, we're recording this in January of 2025. What is that motivation or that fuel for you today?
I've sometimes, I ask myself that. My wife asked me the other day, not in that way, but she was like, "So when are you stopping? Like, how far are you gonna reach? You've run 100K. You've run multiple Spartan ultras. You've been in death rates. Like, what? Why you keep doing these things? How far are you gonna get?" And I think it's a sense of accomplishment for myself. It's not so much the medal, or not so much the saying that I did it or I finished it, but feeling that I was capable of doing these things that seemed not possible or impossible.
Mm.
And you're finding out that I am able to do these things. And even if I can inspire others to also try, well, even better. There's always, I want my kids to grow up knowing the things that I know today, knowing about nutrition, knowing about the importance of physical movement, not so much for how they look or how they will perform in a race, but to be healthy, I want to be able to reach a certain age where I can still play with them. They're 8 and 6, I'm 43, right? So I had them a little bit later in life. So I want to be able to, when they're 20, I want to be able to move. I don't want to be that old man with a cane at 55. So that's a goal. That's something that pushes me.
Hmm. You mentioned back at 29, 30, when this journey began, the support. You talked about the dietitian. And one of the things that we believe at My Impossible is that community is everything in this journey. I'm wondering whether you think, from back then or till today, what has been the role of community in accomplishing what you've done of taking on your impossible?
Right. You can always have your own personal goals, whether they're selfish or not. But the reality is that we can never do anything without other people, right? No matter what your goal is in life or work or physical, you're always gonna need that support from others. Um, at that time, I had that group, that dietitian group. As time went by, there was a little bit of a small group from my office that would go to the gym at about the same time, so that there was that support. Even if we were not working out together, we would see each other there every day at the same time. Then I started running marathons, and then you have that big running community of people that is suffering through the same things that you're doing. There was a point in time during the pandemic. I was one of those that the disruption of the uh, uh, um, regular routines affected me. Right, it was hard for me to continue being. I could not go to the gym. I could not go out. I would run a lot on the treadmill, so I could not run in the treadmill. I had to go out and run in the street, which was harder because I was living in the tropics, so it was hot and humid. Um, so I joined this one fitness app, and that included a community, and I met people there that I still talk to them, and we do Spartan races together. Having this group of people with the same mind supported me at that time to get back into a routine. Then I started running Spartan races, encouraged by one of that group, and then I found that other group, right? Other people, the Spartans, which are striving to do even harder things. And within the Spartan community, then I discovered the endurance group in Spartan doing these hurricane hits and this death race and these harder challenges. So there's always been a group of people striving to get to those goals uh, at different stages in their life, and that is absolutely necessary for any goal.
Mm. Tell us more about your Spartan journey. What do you love about that, whether it be trails or endurance or the regular Spartan races? What is it that keeps you coming back to that?
One of the things about the regular Spartan races is it's that even though obstacles are standard, every race is going to be different, right? The weather is going to be different. The terrain is going to be different. The people that are running with you is going to be different. Um, and you need to train your whole body. It's not a running a competition alone, even though you need to be a good runner, but you need to train your obstacles too. You're going to find problems during the race, and you're going to have to make up for them. So that's what I like about them. That extra challenge is not just a race. It's not just running. It's more than that. You need your whole body. You need to be mentally prepared for it, and that's also what comes down to the endurance events, to the hurricane hits, because you never know what you're going to encounter. There's a lot of mental battles going into those 12 hours, those 24 hours. Death race is also a different monster, because you also battle people trying to tell you to quit, trying to get in your head, trying to find your weaknesses, not because they want to exploit them, just because they are bad, but because they want you to face them. And that's what so many people don't understand about death race, and it's part of the advertisement of it too. It is definitely hard, but all those challenges and all those people trying to mess with your head is trying to make you stronger, right? It's trying to help you realize where are your weaknesses, so that you work on them and move forward. And that's what I like about this part of this niche within the Spartan group. It's not only the physical point of it. It's also enduring this part inside you, telling you that you cannot do this, but you can. It At the end of the day, you can.
Mm. When I was talking to our friend Henry, he was describing the summer death race as being really transformational, of having this moment where it was his end point, and then realizing that it wasn't about the physical, it was about it was about his mindset and what was possible. In any of those races, have you had a moment that you would call transformational?
Right. I remember very clearly during that race, for example, I was there with Henry. I saw him. I saw his face at different points, and I knew he was in that breaking mental point. I had my own too. I remember we had been all night going around the same circle, doing the same thing. I had to wheelbarrow, doing the wheelbarrow thing like the kids, for miles and miles all night. My wrists were completely gone. Like it was painful. My hands were swollen. My fingers were swollen. I had blisters on the back, on the bottom of my hands. And, the activity changed and they tell us to walk on our hands from one point to another. And that's a skill that I don't know. I don't know how to walk on my hands. And like, how am I going to do this? And I remember at that point, I was thinking I was gonna, like, I was going to quit. I can't put my weight on my hands anymore. Uh, and I remember I was gonna talk to one of them and tell them I was going to quit. And he told me, no, I'm not going to. When you quit, you take off your beep and you give it. That's like your fist. That's the show that you are quitting. You can say you're quitting, but until you take off that and give it, you're still on the race. And then he said, I'm not taking your beep. You have to give it to that guy. And that guy was the one that had been trying to mess up with our heads for the past few hours. And that kind of fueled me. And I said, I'm not going to quit that guy. I'm not going to tell him that he won. I'm not going to tell him that he got in my head and I cannot do this. I'm going to try. And I stayed in the race and I kept going. And it was horrible. It was painful. And I stayed, uh, I kept fighting until the end. And there was a point where maybe about 70% of the people remaining was caught. The ones that didn't quit before, there was a time hack. We had to complete an activity before a certain time. I could not complete it until, before the time limit. So we were removed from the race. So I died trying. I did not quit. And that is something that I take out of that race. You can always give a bit more than you think it was physically possible. It was 36 hours on the race. We had not slept. We had not rest and all that time. Even my hands were in a bad shape, but I could keep going until, I could have continued. I don't know if I would have been able to finish, but I knew at that moment that I could keep going and do more in the race.
What shifted for you in your mind in that race?
Yeah, definitely it was that. I thought I was done at some point in time and I wasn't. So I know there's always more to give. Your perception of what is possible and your mind is not real. Most of the time there's a lot more that you can give. And I have taken that into more stuff after that. After that event in different races. After that, a few months later, I went to another event where Spartan held the Hurricane Heat Endurance Trifecta and the Running Trifecta on the same weekend. So I started at Friday 8 a.m. With the Hurricane Heat 24 hours, went until Saturday. Then I ran the Beast. Then I ran the Sprint. Then I did 12 hours Hurricane Heat until the morning on Sunday. Then I ran the Super. Then I had 4 hours Hurricane Heat. So it finished at Sunday 8 p.m. So I went straight from Friday 8 a.m. until Sunday 8 p.m. And there were many moments in that, that period of time where I was tired. I could not do much more. But I remember those points in that race where I knew I could do more and I kept going.
I love it.
And it was only 3 people that was able to do the whole thing. And it's the first time that Spartan did it. So I'm one of 3 people who has completed an endurance trifecta and an OCR trifecta on the same weekend.
It's so good. Our minds tell us it's enough, but there's more possible. I love that. Carlos, as people are hearing your story and what you're sharing, what do you hope that people get from this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, whatever goal you put yourself to do, you might not be able to do it tomorrow. It's going to take a lot of work and sweat and preparation and reading and investigation and more sweat and more work and more blood to get there. But you can do it. Yeah. It's. I know it sounds cliche. I know it sounds like a book that says, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Um, and yes, there will be limits to what is physically possible. But if you put yourself those goals and work hard to get them done, you can do it.
Mm, so good, man. You're a gift. You're a gift to me that you're on the Kilimanjaro team, and you're a gift in turn in your story and sharing it so openly today. Thanks so much for being here.
No, thank you for inviting me and for inviting me to go up Kilimanjaro with you guys. And looking forward for more training and being there in the mountain in September.